this month. You do have to register for every one individually. So if you only registered for this class, but you want to attend the other ones, please be sure that you register for those. Just a little housekeeping. This program today is going to be live streamed, so I just want to make everyone aware of that. I'm waving to the booth back there. Can everyone hear me okay? Good? Okay. I'm not used to presenting in a mask. I feel very strange. So if at any point you can't hear me, just wave me down. And I can turn this up, as I found out in a terrifying way when I first turned it on. So we're here together for an hour and a half today. I wanted to give a little bit of background on this series and why we're doing it. So the library very graciously for many years has offered lots of wonderful resources to nonprofits, one of which is the Meet the Funders panel that we do every June. Many of you may have attended that. It's a panel of local foundations talking about their giving strategies and how to apply and all that kind of stuff. And over the last couple of years, I've moderated that session. I've gotten, and the library has gotten some requests on, okay, this is all well and good, but like, I need to know how to build a fundraising plan, right? Like that kind of grassroots, basic, like I'm starting from scratch. I need to know how to do that. So Kelly and I were talking and kind of came up with offering this 4-part series. It's the first time we've ever done it. First time I've ever done it, I should say. And the library has been gracious enough to host and promote and provide us with this beautiful space, which is newly beautiful in lots of ways. So I'm grateful to the library. I just want to say thank you to them. And I'm thrilled that you all are here. Many of you have talked to me one-on-one in the past about, how do I build my fundraising program? And so I'm excited to have a group that we can kind of talk about that together. So I think the first thing I would like to do is ourselves. Some meaningful introductions, not just the flyby wave. So I would love to know who you are, what organization you're with, if you are with one. If not, it's totally cool, and why you're here. Maybe we could just start with that. Can I start with Judith? I'm just going to turn it right over to you.
Sorry, hey, Judith Danez with Rooted Northwest Arkansas, and I'm here to learn about fundraising.
Thanks, Judith. I'm glad to see you.
Liza Lopez Love, also with Rooted Northwest Arkansas.
Thanks for joining us, Liza. Good to see you.
Daimara Baker with Broken Baker.
Thanks, Tamara.
I'm Kim Schuler with the Arkansas Behavioral Health Integration Network.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Kim.
I'm Dave Shelley, and I'm looking at transitioning, and nonprofit is something I'm looking at.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Dave. Glad to have you.
I'm Tammy Hernandez. I'm looking into starting a nonprofit.
Okay, perfect. Fundraising, good place to start. Thanks, Tammy.
I'm Mallory Mounts, and I'm with Single Parent Scholarship Fund of Northwest Arkansas.
Thanks, Mallory.
I'm Beth Graham. I'm with More to Give NWA.
Thanks, Beth.
Tanya Collins with Appleseeds.
Okay, good to see you, Tanya.
Cheryl Furia with Family Locator Consulting, Fayetteville, Springdale.
Okay, welcome.
I'm Shelley Smith. I'm with Ozarks Water Watch.
Okay. Addison works with me.
Art Kent with the Ozarks Adaptive Sports Program.
Okay, great to see you.
Sean Kent with Ozark Adaptive Sports Association.
Sean is taking you to task already. I'm going to like this.
It's really tough to work for your son. It's really terrible. I get timed out.
All right.
Murray with Fayetteville Public Library.
Cassidy, thank you.
Kelly Haley, Fayetteville Public Library.
Thanks,
I'm
Kate.
Mary Thompson with Appleseeds also.
Okay, awesome. So a good mix of organizations represented. I'm glad to see you all. And I want to, again, say my sincere gratitude to the library and to Cassie and Kelly for putting together all the nonprofit programming that's offered here, as well as the Nonprofit Resource Center, Nonprofit and Small Business Resource Center, which is such a great resource. If you haven't made full use of that here, I really encourage you to do so. So I wanted to start with this session when we were talking about like what 4 sessions, if we were doing a 4-part series on fundraising, like what would be the 4 topics we'd want to cover. And fundraising, of course, is a very broad topic. We're not going to cover everything you might ever need to know by any means, but I really wanted to talk about fear of fundraising because I'm a consultant. I work with lots of different organizations. And the thing that I find is that organizations don't raise the amount of money that they could, not necessarily because they lack the technical knowledge or skill in fundraising, but it's more that they find fundraising an icky thought and they don't want to do it, right? Can anybody relate to that at all? Right? Right, okay. So I think that the fear is the thing that gets in our way of fundraising. And so I thought, it doesn't matter like what I might share about fundraising. If you still don't want to do it, it's not going to matter, right? So I wanted to really have a session where we talk a little bit about that fear, where those fears come from, whether they are founded in like truths about fundraising or myths about fundraising. And I want to have kind of a safe space for us to just talk openly about that. So this is the place where you can share your concerns and fears and anxieties, and this is a group of friends, I can already tell, all of us together. So I feel like if we can get that out in the open, then we can talk about it in a way that's going to make it meaningful to you and going to help you move forward. Because there are so many different resources out there you can learn about the nuts and bolts of fundraising, but really targeting, what is holding us back. And I just see so many organizations held back by that fear, or just that, I don't really want to do that kind of reaction. So I thought what we might start with, if you would indulge me, is I'm going to hand out index cards because I am high tech. And I would love it if you would write down what your fundraising fears are. Or if fear is not the right word, maybe what makes you nervous about fundraising, what makes you not want to do it, anything like that. And these are going to be anonymous. I'm going to collect them from you. You don't need to put your name on them, if you would pass those down. And then we're just going to talk about them. I think maybe that would be the right place to start. And we're going to talk about sort of what fundraising really looks like after we kind of get these out in the open. I have a lot of people who tell me, like, I don't really want to do this, but don't tell anyone. Right? But I have a lot of people who I think, are looking for part therapist, maybe part consultant, part therapist. I know you're not in a fundraising position, but I'll give you one anyway.
We do have to write grants.
Okay, there you go. Yes, and this is fundraising of any kind. I mean, this can be fundraising from individuals, grants, corporations, what have you, any kind of fundraising. I'll give you just a few minutes to do that. And think about, another way to think about this is, if whatever that feeling is or whatever those thoughts are, if those were removed, you would be able to do this work. What do you need to get over to be able to do this work is another way of looking at it. It's like a Halloween topic right off the bat. Okay, I'll collect those from you. I'm not paying any attention to who wrote what. And we're going to see what we have in common. Thank you. Oop, thank you. Thanks, Addison. I hope your answer is not your boss. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Joe. It's good to see you. Glad you can make it. All right, anyone still? Oh, I got you over there. Okay. Anybody else still have one? Okay, I'm going to shuffle them good. Okay, so I'm going to read through these. What I would like to do is, hello, welcome, come on in. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Kelton, come on in. We're sharing our fears. You're just in time. No one will ever come to a session of mine again.
Oh, I have to do this. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mirna Ordóñez, and I'm coming from an organization called Arkansas Latinas in DC. And pretty much our mission is to help multicultural, multicultural communities to get engaged in biking and get healthy habits.
That's awesome. Thank you. And we're writing down what scares us about fundraising.
Oh,
So if you want to take a moment. Kelton, you want to introduce? We just finished introductions.
Yeah, my name is Kelton Hayes. I lead Calpasone Farms. We're a nonprofit committed to reducing hunger in Northwest Arkansas through sustainable agriculture. We run a 25-acre farm off of West Wagon where we grow produce and raise livestock.
That was an excellent summary.
Somebody coached me.
For your fundraising fears. And would you like to introduce?
Yeah, my name's Sandra. I just started at the Northwest Arkansas Center for Sexual Assault.
Oh, yes. Yay, welcome. This is for what scares you about fundraising. Anything that you want to share anonymously. I'll give you just a couple. So while the three of them are working, I would like to read some of this, and I would like to know who relates. So if I read something and you can relate to that, I would just like a show of hands. Is that something that we can do? Okay, I'm going to give those three just a second. And then we will do that. And I'm going to write sort of the themes up here, and then we're going to talk about that. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. And my 6-year-old was asking me last night, well, I'm not going to admit to doing this last night late, but she was asking me, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so I told her, well, we're going to talk, about raising money for helping other people. And she said, well, that sounds fun. And I was telling her, well, we're kind of going to talk about what scares us about it. And she said, you need something happy looking. And I said, I do, Elise. And so she said, I'll draw you something. One more. I'll say while we're waiting that you have program evaluations. Those are for after the program, and there's a box there at the back for those. So if you would drop them in there, that helps the library know what programming to offer, etc. Okay, I want to go ahead and start. And I know some of you are just finishing up. Just raise your hand when you're done, and I'll grab it from you. I've shuffled these thoroughly, and I just want to raise of hands whenever I say something that you can relate to, right? That you feel the same way. Okay. Having more equipment than participants, so not having enough participants for what you've got. Yes, several, okay. Not being a sunny, talkative extrovert who never tires of talking to supporters. I love this. Introverts, raise your hand higher. That was like I don't want to, yeah, okay. I'll tell you a story. My husband and I did premarital counseling, and we took this assessment of introversion, extroversion, like to measure your level of each. And my husband was 51% introverted. They called him an ambivert, which is a term that I've never heard before. He's like straight in the middle. And I am 89% introverted. I hate small talk so much. So I'm right there with you. Good news is you do not have to do that to be a good fundraiser. Because if you're introverted, you have relationship building skills, right? You're a good listener. And that's a key fundraising skill. So no worries. Okay. So let me I'm just going to put small talk up here. Or like networking small talk. That would probably all fall into the same category. Okay, how about being able to reach people, get a response and time on their calendar, and engage in dialogue? If you find that process to be difficult, raise your hand. Yep, yeah, okay. So maybe just engagement with the right people. Okay. How about offending someone? Oh, that's a really good one. How many of us are afraid of offending someone, and so we don't want to fundraise, right? Okay, excellent. How might we offend someone? Does anyone want to give an example?
Ask too much if you're little.
Okay, ask for the wrong amount. Anything else? How might we offend someone?
Gender misidentification?
Yes, gender misidentification, for sure. Anything else? Yes.
Social activist talk
Social activist talk.
makes people uncomfortable.
Like you doing it makes people uncomfortable. Okay. Yes. Okay. Offending. Not me, Judith. You can come talk to me anytime. Okay. Great. Spending a lot to make the fundraising and that people don't support or show up to the fundraising. So this probably is events we're talking about, right? Like spending a lot on events, people don't show up. Yes. Secret also that I really dislike fundraising events. Okay. Let me just put events. This is like a great list for me too. All right. Events, no shows maybe. Okay. I'm always caught between like my dislike of small talk, like thank goodness there aren't very many people here, and then like, oh no, there are not very many people here. Okay, I'm conflicted about that one. Yay, me and my 5 closest friends. Okay. Asking for money from someone who then puts distance in a relationship or friendship so that they will not be asked again. So you've offended someone and now they don't want to talk to you anymore. Fear of that? Fear of that? Yes. Okay. Someone saying no. Someone saying no to the ask. Like the fear of rejection. That's got to be common, right? Yep. Fear of rejection. Fear of the no. Okay. Making too large or too small of an ask. We've already said that one. Reapproaching someone who's already said no or used to donate and doesn't now. So reapproaching people, trying to re-engage them. Yeah. Okay. Sandra, I'm going to put yours in the middle of the stack, lest I identify you. Okay. All right. Afraid of wasting time on efforts that will not yield significant results. So I'm just spinning my wheels, right? That's a lot. Okay. So we'll talk about good investment of time. Wasting time. Awkward to ask for money. How many people think it's awkward to ask for money? Awkward, yes. General awkwardness. People say no, I'm not confident in convincing someone to donate. Okay. So we're going to talk about convincing people. It's something we're definitely going to talk. Math numbers are complicated. This is awesome. Who agrees with that? Like, I did not get into nonprofit work to do math. I'm just going to put math. True story, my degree is in English, and I took one math class in college. I got out with just like finite math. I never even took trigger calculus in high school, nothing like that. I hate math so much. And I was like, I am an English major, will never have to do math again. And now like 58% of my time is spent budgeting. So I hear you. Okay. Having to mold the story to make donor or funders comfortable donating too. So we're changing the way we talk about what we do to fit funders' expectations or to make them comfortable. This goes back to social advocates talk offending people. How many people relate to this?
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. We'll talk about why we don't. But there's the temptation, right? I mean, the temptation is there even if it's not something you do. Okay, so I would say, I call that like donor centrism, like letting the donor sort of dictate what we do instead of the community dictating what we do. Okay. Hardest part, engaging individual donors when there are greater needs in other areas or issues. So you have more pressing things, more fires to put out elsewhere, and you're trying to get to your individual donors. Anybody relate to that? Yes. Okay. I don't like asking for money, honest. I don't want people to think I'm using them or that I only care about the relationship because I want something from them. Anybody feel like that? So sometimes we call that transactional fundraising, like we're treating people like transactions, and that feels icky. I'm going to put that up here.
Does it apply also friends?
Uh-huh, yep. Yes. So our friends feel like we've done some sort of bait and switch on them, right? Okay. No processes, no fundraise. I assume this is fundraising. Processes in place. We're reinventing the wheel every time. Every person is doing things differently, so we don't have a process in place. Anybody struggle with that in your organization or can relate to that? Okay. All right. Investing time, asking for money, and being told no. Okay. Yes, I think these are ones we've already covered. Writing grant proposals. Who does not like to write grant proposals? Oh, come on, people. Okay.
That was mine. I don't mind the writing part. It's the 10 different little electronic boxes.
Yes.
They're always online now, and they basically want you to say the same thing 10 times.
Yes. Grant makers are notorious for
One
that.
time you say it in 20 words, and then you say it in 200, and then you say it in 50. So
Yes.
That is annoying.
Yes, it is.
One giant proposal, great.
Especially for those of us who love words, right? I'm an English major. I'm like, I want to write 12 pages instead of 50 characters that you're asking me to answer 6 questions in that amount of time.
I am a business person, so I go the other way.
Oh,
I like to be very concise, and they want me to write 3,000.
So it depends on your background, I think, right? What you feel about it. Okay, do we feel like this is a pretty good list? Anything that we've not covered that is a burning fear on your brain? I want to make sure that we sort of get a chance to address all of these things. Okay. Pardon?
Doing it wrong.
Doing it wrong. Okay. Yeah.
Starting out, not knowing what you're doing.
Okay. Doing it wrong. Okay. All right. Awesome.
So to
Yeah.
get online a bit more,
Mm-hmm.
having more equipment and participants.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I apply for grants when I already have, when I know I'm gonna need this stuff, but I don't have the need per se now?
Okay. Yeah. So like long range planning, which is always hard in fundraising. Like there's some things you need now, but.
Long-range planning is just, can I fundraise properly, be like, I don't have the people yet because they're still very new, but, you know, be like, take you out the money.
So the people are what you need to fundraise for now, is what you're saying?
Very well.
Yeah. Yes, you can, for sure. Okay. So I want to talk just a little bit about fundraising, kind of what fundraising is, and then I have a few activities for us to do. I have my little clicker. Okay. We've already introduced ourselves. We've covered what we're afraid of, right? So this is what we're overcoming today, or what I hope we can overcome. Okay, so here's a question I'd like to consider then before we kind of move on into some sort of more meat of this presentation is, like, where do those fears come from? Do those I know we don't necessarily need to talk about this for each one of these, but I just want you to consider that you have identified, like, where do those fears come from? Like, is it from your personal experience? Like, you've put a lot of effort into fundraising activities that haven't panned out or haven't brought in what you needed, like personal experience. Are some of them kind of more interpersonal, like the fear of being told no? I've been told no so many times. So personal question for each of you, like what are we so afraid of being told no? And I will say about that one in particular, because it's so common, that I've been fundraising for 14 years. I have never had anyone offended that I asked them, right? Now I know that can happen, and we're going to talk about how to do fundraising to where it won't happen. But the no's that I get are almost always, oh, I wish I could. Like, I would love to. It's not the right time. I don't have, that amount of money. We just made a gift to this organization. It's not, there's some other mitigating factor that's the reason I can't do it, but I would have loved to, Or it's no, I can't give at the level you're asking, but I can give this instead. That's kind of a no yes, right? Or, something has happened that was unforeseen or something like that. So I would say that the experience of people just being offended that you have asked can happen if you don't do the relationship building part of it correctly, and we'll talk about that. But I would say that if you're doing that correctly, if you're building relationships with people who are passionate about your mission, it's really rare that you're just going to get a hell no response, right? And I've had a lot of support from donors who said no to me, but then came back later like, okay, I can't do that, but I can do this. Like, can we do this? And they come up with something else. So I would just keep that in mind if the fear of being told no is the thing that's holding, right? So we really have to be real careful that people aren't rejecting us as people if they say no, right? And so in some of these other things, I think I would just encourage you to spend a little time, if the goal today is to help us overcome our fears, spend a little time thinking about where those fears come from, right? And then what work you can do, and we're going to have some ideas later on overcoming those fears, okay? Also, this is relevant too, there's a lot of research being done on fundraising that has been done on fundraising. Do you know why the number one reason people don't give to an organization is? People who don't give, the number one reason they don't give. They're not asked, right? And I've worked with so many donors over the years that have said, my gosh, I would have given to this organization sooner, but they just never asked me, right? I just didn't know, right? So I think the fear of being told no, prevents us, yes, who are willing to give, who are ready to give. Okay, so this is the first thing. I wanted to do this because as a consultant, I work with a lot of organizations, and a lot of people, work with me because they say, well, I'm not a fundraiser, right? Like, I need you to come in and help my board, or I need you to come in and help me because I'm just not a fundraiser. Like, I'm a program person, I'm a, teacher, I'm a farmer, I'm a this or that or the other, but I'm just not a fundraiser. But if you do any kind of work into your organization, you are a fundraiser, okay? Let's be clear. Right? You may not be the world's most enthusiastic fundraiser. You may not love it yet. I'm going to use the word yet. But if you do anything that brings in charitable dollars, you're a fundraiser, right? So I think the first thing we have to do is own that chair. Like, own the fact that you are one. You are a fundraiser. Kelly Grants. Hi, Irma, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Yeah. So what I would like you to do with these are little table tents that I made for you. Please write your name on the line, right? This is like what I do with my 6-year-old. This is what you get. Okay, write your name on the line. I am a fundraiser. And I think it is so important to really own that, right? Because what I would find is that organizations that don't think of them, whose staff don't think of themselves as fundraisers, like, I'm not really a fundraiser, I'm really a program person, even though I'm the one responsible for raising money, right? Or I do this or that, I'm not really a fundraiser. I think it's like you're never gonna really be successful at it, as long as you have that attitude. If you don't really own the fact that you are a fundraiser, you're never gonna be a good one. And it's not because of any of your skills, it's just because you have to think of yourself as a fundraiser to raise money. And I think it's like, I swim, and I'm terrible at it, right? But I love it. And I swim in an outdoor pool, and this time of year, it's really, really cold, even though the pool is heated. And it's like, you've probably had this experience. If you get to a pool and it's cold and you like put your toe in it or put your finger in it, it feels cold, right? And you're like, oh no, I don't want to get in. But as soon as you jump in, it only takes a couple seconds for your body to acclimate, and then you feel fine, right? And fundraising is kind of like that, or anything that you're afraid of is kind of like that. If you are just putting a toe in, you're never going to really be successful, right? Jump in with both feet. That's the first thing. Like, in order to overcome your fear, in order to really embrace fundraising, like, own that chair, jump right. Me, look at your little sign and remind yourself that you are a fundraiser, right? You may be a part-time fundraiser, like it may just be part of your job and you also do all these other things, which is fine. You're still a fundraiser. You're a board member for an organization, so maybe you're a volunteer fundraiser, which is great. You're still a fundraiser, right? If you have any responsibility at all for fundraising, you are a fundraiser, right? Do we have any thoughts about this? Is anyone ever tempted to think of themselves as something other than a fundraiser? Like, this is just not what I do. Anyone want to admit to it? Thoughts? I find this a lot, and I think it's so important that we just embrace the role. So I'm hoping that through this series, we're going to give you the tools that you need and the confidence you need to really embrace that, but it is up to you that you do sit in a fundraising capacity. Okay. So there's lots of secrets about fundraising. Here is the biggest secret. People want to give, right? People want to. And every presentation I do on any topic involves this graphic, right? There's an organization called Giving USA, and every year they do a study of charitable giving in the US. And last year, $471 billion given, that's private money, so this is not government money, in the private sector, nonprofit, $471 billion. It's about a $1 billion increase over 2019. Okay, and you can see this little pie chart is where does that money come from? So who is giving that money if that's the total given? So this yellow is individuals. So that's just individual people writing a check or making an online donation. The blue piece is bequests. That's people, that's also individuals, right? People leaving money in their estates. The red piece is foundations, and then this dark blue, kind of blackish piece is corporations, right?
But does it compare for the previous year because we were on a pandemic?
So last year, foundation giving was 17%, 2019, foundation giving was 17%. So that piece of the pie grew just a little bit in the pandemic. We had a lot of COVID emergency funding. But other than that, these categories pretty much stay consistent every year. There's not any kind of, they'll change maybe 1 percentage point. It's pretty consistent. So I present this to say that the most money that is out there for you to raise for your organization is held by individuals. So we're going to talk a lot in this series about focus on raising money from individual people, right? For that reason. And I'm a fundraising consultant. About half of the work that I do is grants. The other half is general fundraising. But I spend time telling people all the time that they don't need grants. They need individual fundraising, right? And that's a long-term view, and it's difficult. Difficult in that you have to work at it, right? Not difficult, complicated, but difficult that it's effort to raise money from individuals. But if you can build a donor base over time, which we'll talk about how to do, then that's by far the largest, the largest pool of donors that are out there for you. So people would not give $471 billion because somebody tried to make them or coerce them into it, right? This is also the point. People want to give. And I've worked with so many donors over the years, it's important for them to give. It's personal for them to give. Their heart needs it, right? And people give for all kinds of different reasons. Some people give because they feel like that's just part of who they are and how they want to support their community. Some people are motivated by their faith to give. Some people are motivated by tax benefit to give. Some people are motivated by wanting to be included in a group, wanting to be part of something, wanting to meet other people. Some people are motivated by. So we just got threw one together as quickly as we could and got it out the door. We need to get out something. It was not the most polished appeal. It was not the best, but we just needed to get an ask out. So we did. And the very first gift that came back from that mailing was a $25 check. And there was a note attached to this check from a woman who had given to the shelter several years previous, but hadn't given the past few years. And her note just said, "Thank you so much for remembering me. I really needed to write this check." And that was such a great education to me that people want to be remembered, they want to be included, and it's important to people to give, right? If you give, as I hope most of you do, it's probably personal to you, right? And it's probably important to you, right? Okay, so people have personal reasons for giving. This is somebody said coercing people or convincing people to give. Good fundraising doesn't coerce anybody or convince anybody to do anything, right? You are just finding people who already care about the kind of work you do or the problem you're trying to solve or the people that you serve, and you're connecting them with an opportunity to give, right? Okay. Any thoughts about this? Is this surprising? Do we already know this? Any kind of reaction to this? Because I think this is really critical.
I would thought corporations would give more.
Mm-hmm. Now this is nationally, Northwest Arkansas, our corporate giving might be a little bit more, but it's not going to be significant more. We still are very individual heavy. Okay.
Do you think one factor why corporation doesn't give, well, they are not asked, but also it's the intimidation that we cannot reach out to them or have the direct contact for?
For corporations, you mean? I think they just don't have as much budget to give.
I think a lot of corporations too funnel their money into foundations, like some of those larger corporations, so it doesn't look like it's coming from the corporation, it's coming from a foundation made up from the funds from a corporation too.
Correct. So that would be in the 19% foundation.
So I think that's maybe part of it a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, the budget typically is very small, and it's typically driven by the kind of business that they're in, or whatever the directive the CEO may say, that they just have that fund to one entity and that's it.
Yeah. They have a very narrow focus. And I will say too, just from doing so much fundraising myself, I mean, I love corporate support and I love foundation support, but they also change their focus over time. So if they're really focused on your mission now, they may not be in 5 years. Whereas people don't tend to do that. Like, people might be involved in various organizations, but if it's something that I care very deeply about, I'm not likely to change my mind. I'm not as likely to change my mind. And so that's another reason for individual donations to be your focus.
Is it also because at times you're talking about dollars and companies could give away stuff that they do or product or whatever that doesn't really qualify as dollars?
Yeah, like in-kind donations might be part of it too. Yep, that's true. Okay. How many of you, I would be interested to know, how many of you have a mission that is really, really close to your heart? Right? If it makes you feel so good to be involved, it's why it's important to you, and other people are going to feel that way too. But they may not be in a position to work for you. They may not be in a position to volunteer. My focus is alleviating gender-based violence, right? 3 of my friends were killed by people who were supposed to love them. Gender-based violence will always be the thing that I'm passionate about. And I used to volunteer when I was younger and had less responsibilities, fewer responsibilities. I used to be a volunteer advocate, right, at the Sexual Assault Center. And so I would assist in doing forensic medical exams and advocacy and that kind of thing. And that was really fulfilling and deepened my commitment to that cause. But now I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I can't be answering the hotline at 2 a.m. I just am not in a position anymore to do that. But I can write a check, which keeps me involved, right? And organizations keep me involved in the cause in a way that's meaningful. And so think about that too. Not everybody can volunteer for you. Not everybody can work for you. Not everybody may need your services, but there are a lot of people in the community that care about what you do. And so what's the opportunity for them to be involved, right? It's donating. So that's why it's important to provide that opportunity. Also volunteer. So this is a volunteer stat about Arkansas. 698,000 Arkansan residents volunteered. So again, I'm just reiterating that people want to give, right? We're not convincing people that don't want to give. Okay. So here's the other secret, and I want to go to some of our fears here that are relevant to this. So there's good and bad fundraising. I think I said that in my blurb for this session. Not all fundraising is created equal, right? There's certainly bad fundraising that's out there. And you don't want to, right? So if you see other organizations doing things and you're like, oh man, I don't want to be schmoozing that crowd. I don't want to be throwing the golf tournament. I don't want to be doing that. Well, you don't have to, right? Fundraising is something that should be appropriate for your organizational culture, for your mission, for the people you serve, and you should do it the way that feels empowering to you and to your clients. I will also send you all a link to this presentation, by the way, after we're done. So good fundraising is about building relationships. I meet so many people who are awesome at making friends, right? They're awesome at community building. I know that Kelton could talk to me for 2 hours about cobblestone without taking a breath, right? And he would want to know why I care about sustainable agriculture too. Am I right? Right. We love that, right? Probably all of you for your missions could talk, at length, ad nauseum, about why what you do is so powerful, right? And you build relationships with people who care about the same thing you care about, right? If we meet and I'm like, oh my gosh, serving victims of violence is what I love too. Like, let's talk about what's going on at the center. Like, we can talk all day about that. Relationship building, I think, comes naturally to us in the nonprofit sector, to most people. I don't tend to find a lot of nonprofit professionals who are like, nah, I don't like people, right? We are people. We love relationships. Well, fundraising is just building relationships. That's all it is, which is why I love it, right? And I worked for, a lot of years with people who were convinced that the community did not care about them, right? They've been convinced by their abusive partner that nobody cares about you. They want to be part of a group, right? And we've seen this, I think, in the pandemic especially. Like, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, for the first time, I am really wanting to reach out and get involved, like heavily involved in something. And it's because we're isolated and people are wanting some way to be involved and be connected. I worked with an organization that did a fundraising campaign for Giving Tuesday last year, and what they did was they wanted to find 30 people who would make a monthly donation to the organization, sign up for a monthly donation of any amount, and they called them the Amigos, and anybody could, any amount, you sign up for a monthly gift, you're part of the Amigos, and they promised that we would have a quarterly Zoom call with the executive director that would just be like, let's meet each other and talk about, you know, challenges facing our immigrant neighbors. And they did. They raised $15,000 in one day because people wanted to be involved. You know, they wanted to connect with other people. They wanted to meet people that care about what they care about. They want to be part of a group. And I think that's something we can tap into now, especially. Like, how can we provide an opportunity for people to really meet other people who love what they love? You know, I'm talking about the mission, who love the mission they love. So good fundraising is relational, not transactional. So this is going back to one of our fears was treating people like transactions, right? I'm going to ask you for a gift, you're going to give it to me, hopefully, and then I'm never going to contact you again. I call this the ATM method, like treating people like ATMs, right? I'm just going to take your money and leave, right? And that's icky. Like, nobody wants to do that. That's bad fundraising. It is fundraising, but it's bad fundraising, right? You want people to be invested long term. You know, you want that group of amigos who are going to love what you're doing, who are going to talk about you in the community, who are going to spread the word, who are going to bring other people in. Like, you want to build that network. And that's relational, not transactional. And that gets you out of, several of you said, like, offending people. Like, I don't want to ask somebody for money because I'm going to offend them and they're never going to want to talk to me again. Or they're going to think that our relationship is just about money. Like, if you have really involved people in, here's our mission, here's what we're doing, we're looking for, you know, 30 people to join us for this. If you're interested, I'd love to talk to you. Like, that's not an aggressive, offensive thing, I wouldn't think, to most people, right? If you give them a meaningful opportunity to be involved. And if they're people that love what you do, right? Okay, and good fundraising is long term. So if you are sitting here worried that you can't pay payroll next week, what we're talking about today may not fill that hole right now, right? But fundraising is long term. It's about not having those holes, those gaps in the future. Because if you have that supportive network of people, they're gonna come to your aid if you need it in the future. One of my friends is a executive director of a victim service agency that recently lost, through no fault of their own, about $800,000 in federal funding. Wasn't anything to do with that organization. The program was cut nationwide across the board. So they have an $800,000 hole in their budget over 2 years. And this organization's annual budget is like $3 to $4 million. So it's a huge chunk of their budget. We've got this hole in our budget and we're going to have to cut services. And their donors said no, and they raised that money, right? But you can't do that if you don't already have these relationships, right? So fundraising, building that core of supporters over time gives you that safety net to where you're not having to just worry about like the next hole you have to fill. And it helps you, if you're an executive director, it helps you sleep at night, which is essential. And then good fundraising also is essential program work. And I always say this because I have people who tell me I'm not an admin or I'm not a fundraiser, I'm a program person, as if there is a difference, right? Now, at your organization, certainly there are staff members who spend more time in programming and staff members who spend more time on external relations, but it's all in service of your programming, right? Because your programs have to have money to operate, right? I mean, I'm assuming you have some expenses, your staff expenses, equipment expenses, space, transportation, whatever it is, have to run your program. So raising that money is a program activity. I think grant funders have done us a disservice in always asking us this like administrative versus what percent administrative costs you have, which is a terrible question nobody should ask. And I always encourage my clients to report 100% program expenses. I think is essential program work because your program has to have money to operate, right? So I'd like to know if anyone has thoughts about any of these or any of these particular or are not the way that you usually think about things. Any sort of reaction to any of those points? Yeah.
So for me, hearing building relationships is important, really helps take away some of the ickiness when I'm thinking about the transactional piece.
Yeah.
Because I think about, okay, if I'm building a relationship with you long term, then it's not just for this one specific ask or project, but we have similar goals and similar values, and so
Right.
that's very helpful.
Right. Some of my very best friends are people that I met because they made a donation. And I'm like, we love the same thing, cool. Right? And I'm not that organization anymore, and I'm not in a position to, to work with them on their giving, but like we're friends because we love the same thing. And that's why I love fundraising, is it's like, you're just like preset to attract people who love what you love. Like, I don't want to small talk about people that love other stuff, right? Yeah, and I think that addresses some of this, fear of offending people, doing it wrong, wasting my time. If you're building relationships long term, like that's a great investment. I mean, that is the investment. Any other reactions to any of these? Okay, do you think that your fundraising program at your organization looks like this now? No, sort of, somewhat. Some of you don't have one yet, I realize. A little? Okay. No, she says no. Okay, so we're going to talk in this series, this 4-part series, about how to move this direction, right? And I think that you will find that you love it. If you love people and relationships and talking about your mission, you're going to love fundraising once we kind of do it right. Okay, so here's how all fundraising works this way. Whether we're talking about raising money from individuals, from foundations, from corporations, any kind of fundraising works this way. And these are fundraising jargon terms, which I thought about not including, but you're going to see them, so I wanted to include them. So step 1, identifying prospects. This is a super fancy and somewhat useless term that just means people in the community that love what you love, right? So who out there does not want electronic equipment in the landfill? Who already cares about that and is already thinking about that? Who cares about sustainable agriculture? Who cares about supporting single parents? Who cares about educational choices for their kids? Like, who already cares about that? So you're not convincing these people. These are people who already have a passion for that. And it's personal to them in some way. This is the other reason I love fundraising, is because you have so many really honest conversations with people about their lives, which I don't think you get in any other setting. I've had so many people cry in meetings in a good way, because it's so personal to them. And I love being in that moment and providing the space and the safe place for people to talk about that. Okay, and so there are several different ways to do this. Think about, the very best donor prospects are the people who already give to you, right? So all of you have someone who's given to your organization in the past, or you wouldn't still be here, right? You have donors. Those folks already really close. If not, that's your first step. Because those are the people care. Then, after you are comfortable that the organization is close to those folks that are already sort of on your wagon, then I just like to ask your supporters. If they are already satisfied and happy with their relationship with you, then I just like to ask them, who else do you know that cares about supporting people in our community with autism? Could you bring them in for a tour? Could you, recommend our program to them? We're doing some sort of special, donor engagement effort this month. I would love to talk to anybody that you know who would be interested in learning more. Now, you're not going to bring them in and ask them for money the first time you meet them, but you're just wanting to educate people, right? And try to find who are those people that already care. Then, once you kind of know who those people are, and I would say this is not going to be everybody, right? Not everybody's going to care about what you do. Don't be offended. It's just everybody has their own thing that they're passionate about. So if people are not particularly passionate about your mission, just move. Okay. Being selective is a lot of fundraising. And you don't how many people, right? Do we need 50 donors? Do we need 70 donors? Can we do that over the course of a year? Probably, right? You don't need everybody in Northwest Arkansas giving to you, right? Just find the ones who care. And then you're going to, again, this is a fundraising term, cultivate and involve them. So this just means you're going to educate them about what you do. And that could look a lot of different ways depending on what your organization is. So that could be they come in for a tour. That could be they go to coffee with you or lunch with you and you talk about what you do. It could be that they attend an event, a happy hour. I love happy hours because they're very easy to plan and not a lot of work, to the fear about investing a lot. Find a way to involve them somehow. And this may be specific to how that person wants to be involved, right? Are they more comfortable coming for a tour? Are they more comfortable having a phone conversation with you? Can your board member meet with them? Like, what is the right way? But you're just wanting to educate them about what you do and involve them in some way. Maybe they would come volunteer. Like, is there a service project where a team could come volunteer? Then you're going to pick the ones that are really excited, right? And you may meet with someone and they may be like, yes, that's great. Okay, great. But you don't feel the passion, right? Like, I'm not like, yes, you are the person I've dreamed of meeting. Like, I'm not that excited, right? I'm probably not your best prospect. You want to pick out the ones who like want to talk to you forever. Like, who are the ones that want to know every detail, that ask a lot of questions, that are talking about why it's important to them. Like, those are your people. And you want to invest in those. Like, again, invest in a relationship with those folks. And then at some point, I just love to ask people, like, hey, I know that this is important, that our mission is really important to you because you've shared with me about how, like, your mom went through this, and we're looking for some donors to support this new project. Is it something I could ask you to support in the future? I just like to ask people. I'm not asking them for money. I'm just asking. I'm like, cool, I won't ask, right? But if people are like, yeah, my wife and I usually do our giving like in November. Could you follow up with me in November? Perfect, I would love to. Then they know it's coming, right? And again, to the offending people, if they've told you that they would be interested in learning more, you're not going to offend them by asking, right? So I just like to do that. Hey, was this something that you might see yourself supporting in the future? And then eventually you are going to ask them, like, we would love for you to consider supporting us in this way. And then when they say, yes, I would love to, then you just thank and thank and thank them. And this is easy. Board members love this. I always had my board do the thanking. This is the part of fundraising that they loved. We used to do an October thankathon where we would call all of our donors in October. All of our donors, no matter what they had given. And board members loved that. They'd start asking me like in August, hey, are we going to do that? Everyone? Shelter is so important to me, and I love it, and this is great, and you guys are doing great work. And the board member's like, yeah, fundraising is great, right? That's fun. We like that. And then you don't have to identify people again, right? So then you just thank, cultivate, ask, thank, cultivate, ask, right? And all this while, you're building a relationship with this person, right? This is not transactional. You're not going to forget about them. You're trying to find a way for them to support you that's going to benefit your clients, get your clients in the community what they need, and also empower your donors too, right? If you have the right donors, both things should be happening. Now, we're never going to plan our programs around donor interests. We're never going to change our services because of donor interests. That's not what I mean. But I mean supporting the work that you do should be a positive experience for your donors, right? And you want to make it a positive experience. Okay, any questions about, I'm sorry, I'm on my mic. Any questions about that, about this cycle? This is always the way it works. Questions? Okay. And then this is about the amount of time, approximately, that you will likely spend on each of these steps. So when people think about fundraising, they usually think about the ask, that red part, which is the least amount of time you spend on fundraising, right? By far, what you're mostly doing is involving people and thanking them, right? Which is the relationship part of it. Okay, who is comfortable with the green and the purple and the blue? Right, we can do that, right? I find that people love 98% of fundraising already, right? We just have to figure out how to ask comfortably. And the thing that I find fascinating is that a lot of people are doing all this work for fundraising, and the money is there. The person wants to give, and they just don't ask. And I'm like, get the benefit of all of this investment you have made, in this relationship. So we'll talk about the ask. Okay, I think I want to take a little break. So we've been sitting for a long time. Let's take maybe just 7 minutes. Huh? Oh, I'm so sorry, Kim. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. So I know you talked about identifying prospects, but I was just wondering a little more. So acting with or that are volunteering, do you, with the people that maybe you are in contact with, you ask them to identify other people? So for example, we're a behavioral health organization, and so we do a lot of education and training, and so we have people who are interested in behavioral health, but it's kind of a complicated product that we have. And so for me, I'm thinking about how would I identify beyond our small group other people that would be interested potentially, just in general?
Yeah, I would say it starts with your board. We're going to talk in depth about boards later, but it starts with your board. I mean, they're the people that are committed, that understand, and your board should be helping you expand that network. It doesn't mean that your board has to ask people for money necessarily, but they should at least be bringing people to the organization, telling people about the organization, and then you should be able to kind of identify the ones who seem most engaged and who are really interested. Yeah. People who are not really interested, we're not going to waste anybody's time on that, right? Theirs or ours. So if you just can kind of cast your net and then figure out like who is really genuinely interested, and that's who you kind of focus on. Yeah. All right, let's take about a 7-minute break and then come back. Does that sound okay? If you're not familiar with the library, the bathrooms are right out here. Feel free. Y'all are ready? Bye, Kelton. Thanks. Okay, I have just a couple more things on this topic, and then we're going to move into a little activity because it's late afternoon and we're all tired. And thanking, right? Those are the two main parts of fundraising in terms of the time that you invest in them. So here's like some really common fundraising things. And I always, show this list to people who say they don't like fundraising because usually they like these things, right? Taking someone to lunch, inviting them for a tour, sending thank you notes, asking for some sort of help non-monetary, like, hey, you have this expertise, would you advise us on this? Like we're looking at this. Or volunteer opportunities, other volunteer opportunities. Updates, newsletters, find out if they want to volunteer, invite them to your events, remember their birthdays, anniversaries, that kind of thing. And then just keeping them updated on what's going on at the organization. Like those are things I won't ask for a show of hands, but I would guess you are probably comfortable with this stuff, right? And this is most of what fundraising is. Again, it's relationship building, not transactional. And this is going to change depending on your community that you serve and depending on what kind of, what community your donors are coming from. So this may look different for your audience, which is fine. But anything that you can think of just to involve people and keep them updated. So you might consider making kind of a short list of things that you can do, that you can implement, that are similar to this, that would be appropriate for your organization and your mission. Anything else that you all have done or do that would kind of be a similar task, fundraising task? Anything that you like doing that you've done? Okay, you might give it some thought.
What about leveraging your social media?
Social media, yeah. And then this is a I just wanted to provide this as like some food for thought. I find a lot of organizations that have no problem asking people to volunteer, like asking for volunteer support for things, but then don't want to ask for money. And I wanted to ask why we think that difference is. Like, why are we comfortable asking people to give their time but not their money? Does anyone have an idea? I'm legitimately asking.
More valuable than the money.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of people it is, right? It's harder to give time, but yet we're fine asking for this a lot of times. If you are only engaging people who volunteer for you, and of course your clients, but in terms of supporters, people who volunteer for you, if that's the only engagement, it's hard to volunteer, right? Because it's hard to have the time. You've got to be available at the time the organization needs a volunteer, which is, especially if it's daytime, that's rarely the case. People, have transportation issues or access issues, or they have their caretaker for other people and they can't, I can't leave my 3-year-old at home to go volunteer somewhere, right? And I definitely cannot take her with me, right? So there's just a lot of reasons people could not be available to volunteer for you. But what if they still care about your mission? What if they still love what you do and want to be involved? Like, what is the way they can be involved? It's donating, right? I mean, that's another option for giving people an option to be involved. And the other thing is you're limited in the amount of volunteers. In the amount of volunteers that can be involved. But you're not limited in the amount of people that can invest in you. If you had 500 people make a donation tomorrow, you would say, awesome, and you would know exactly what to do with that money, right? So I think, the sky is a little more, you have a little more of a ceiling when people donate financially rather than donate volunteers. So you're keeping yourself small if all you're offering is a volunteer opportunity, right? So it's just food for thought to think about that. Who out there can't volunteer but wants to be involved with you? And how do you just provide them with that opportunity? Okay. All right. Then the last thing that I want to do is a little activity because I don't love hearing myself talk. So I'd like to pair for this activity. So tomorrow maybe you could pair with them. They have 3. And it looks like we have 3 back here and 3 here. So I'm going to give you, there's 2 slips here, the other. So we're going to have a little bit of an activity, one of you is going to be someone looking to donate somewhere, and the other one is going to be someone looking for donations. Okay? So you're not going to share these with each other. I'm going to, one of you takes one and one of you takes the other. Don't share it with the other person. And then I will give you further instructions. But for now, just read your. Can I give you your? And it looks like maybe over here there's 3, if you wouldn't mind. 2 for 2 of you. Mm-hmm.
There's someone sitting here.
Kelton left.
Okay.
So I think you're good.
So I'll take one of you.
Yeah, one of you take one, the other one take the other one, and just read it for now. I know. I'm going to text him about that. There you go. So take a moment to read your slip. All right, are we good? Okay, so I've just given you the bare bones of a scenario, right? So one of you is someone looking to make a donation. The other person is someone who either works or volunteers at a nonprofit in need of donations. So you can flesh this out however you'd like to, invent other details if you'd like to, give yourself an interesting backstory, whatever you want to. You're not limited to what's on your paper. But this is a scenario that we're going to do. So we're going to assume that you are having a conversation for a reason, right? You have met at an event and you've discovered that you have a common interest. You have been introduced by a board member or by a volunteer. There's some reason that you all are having a conversation, but this is your first long conversation, okay? So there's no agenda for this. I just want you to have a conversation, and then I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, and then we're going to see how it went, okay? All right, so you have already been acquainted, right? You know of each other, but this is your first conversation. All right, and go. about 1 more minute. Let's wrap up our conversations. About 1 more minute.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I can see that. What do you mean? No, just. Wait, wait.
All right, let's wrap up those conversations. We're going to share, if you are comfortable sharing. All right, bring it back, folks. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Okay, yes, almost. All right, who wants to share what you discussed in your scenario and then what you discussed? Who wants to share? No one? No one?
I ended up giving her my money.
Excellent. How did that come about? Tell me what's going on here.
So, I have a nonprofit that provides counseling support and social opportunities for veterans. And with everything going on in Afghanistan, we're seeing an influx of people, of veterans that are needing counseling services, feeling like maybe what they did wasn't, just they need help. And I explained that one single therapy session with a licensed counselor is $100 for a client, and that they need that.
It costs it to provide, not if the client is paying.
Right. It costs us to provide that service for these veterans, and so we just I explained that, and then I explained what other support I assume this place would offer as well. And then, she had come into money from her grandfather passing away, and we had been connected by someone that knew her story and knew what we did, so.
Awesome. So what was your conversation like then? You talked about what you do. What was your side of this conversation like?
So I just started asking her, like, questions and what kind of services she provides, and it got a little bit interesting there.
Yeah, got, a little bit, we were making stuff up, but,
Yeah.
Good, yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It made it interesting.
Okay.
But long story short, she did provide service. So my grandfather died, and I got some money from his estate, so I wanted to give that to a foundation that, number one, serve veterans. So that's what she did.
Okay. So how did the conversation about the gift go? How did that come about?
I just kind of mentioned, like, where our funding was lacking right now with the influx of veterans and things, and just how, or influx of veterans wanting counseling, and just kind of, I didn't directly say, are you needing the money, or do you have money to give?
I think I said what was the most need you
Yeah.
have right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I expanded on.
She said that. And I was
Yes.
like, okay.
So anytime anyone asks you, the nonprofit professional, what's your greatest need, you always need to know what that need is and what it costs.
Yes,
right?
Immediately.
Right. Okay, good. So how do you both feel in your fictional roles about this conversation?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of times, the donor the donor knows what you don't know, right? You may not have known at the beginning of this conversation that she's looking for somewhere to invest these funds.
Right.
And a lot of times the donor will tell you, I've been looking for somewhere to do this. And then your response is, well, we would love to be that place, right?
Yeah.
We would love to partner with you for that.
I think she never said I have money, but then she also said her grandfather passed away, and she's looking to honor him. So, like, to me, that was a kind of a bell that obviously it's most likely a financial way she's going to honor him.
Okay. So in this case, you didn't make an ask.
No.
This is an offer, right? Which happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, you do have to ask. I'm not saying that you don't ask. But, like, that happens sometimes, too, because your donor knows what you don't know, or your potential donor knows that what they need, and they know that it's a good fit. And anytime someone's asking a whole bunch of questions, like, you know this is a person who's interested, right? And this is a person, this is one of those prospect people that you want a relationship with. And so, you know, what does that relationship look like? And the more that you know about her interests, like, the more that you're going to know what she's interested, what part of what you do is going to be most interesting. There's an organization that I support, and I will say, I mean, I am nobody's major donor, right? I do not have the funds to give major gifts places, but I do support this organization, and one of my, the development director and I are friends because she's a good fundraiser, and I've supported the organization for years, and they're building a pet shelter adjacent to their facility for their clients, and she knows that I love animals, and so, I mean, what did she do, right? She called me up. I just wanted to tell you that our board just approved, we're getting a new pet shelter, it's so exciting. And I know, like, she's sharing this with me because she knows that I love pets and I'm going to be interested in this. And then I also know she's going to ask me to support it, which I would love to do, right? Because she knows I like to support them, I love pets, no brainer, right? I don't find that icky, I just find that, like, you want me to be involved in this project, which I love. Like, I love that you thought of me, awesome. Great, okay. Who else wants to share? Okay, excellent. Damara is a great fundraiser already, we know. What was your scenario?
Well, my scenario is that I have a $2,000 budget. My parents raised me, you know, to help the community, and especially I love arts and contribute, you know, for organizations that promote art in the community.
Okay.
So pretty much she was convincing me, you know, to go and have a tour of the organization. But what I liked that she talked to me was that she said, oh, I love, you know, the exposition that your son did about the photography. So she just touched something that it was, you know, family related. That I'll do a contribution to her, to her organization. And I also asked a lot of questions about what do you like that be part of this organization. So she shared about it, and I don't feel like she was asking me, but the way she talked about, very passionate about it, I just wanted to, you know, provide support for her as well.
Wonderful. So there's a lot of personal talk going on here about what she's passionate about, how she feels about the organization, your son's work that obviously you're going to be passionate about, and that's like a relationship building, right? Non-transactional.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it?
Well, I felt that it was really the first time that we're meeting, and how I based this one, it was I have met her son in a photography exhibition.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I started the conversation, that I had went to see his exhibition, and she said that she was also passionate about art and those type of things. And I said, well, no wonder why your son is so good. He's coming from mom, you know, those type of things. And so I never wanted to ask, because really it was the first time that we were talking.
Right.
And that's why I invited her to come over. And she said that her family was passionate about art. And I said, well, what about if you bring all the family to the center and everybody can take a tour, and we coordinate that each one of the days that we have an exhibition, we have a class, and maybe you sit down in one of the classes, you have the experience of what is being in one of our facilities, and then maybe from there we can figure out how we can support each other.
Perfect. Perfect. Everybody wants to donate to Damara's organization. Yes, and so, I mean, you typically wouldn't ask for a gift on your first meeting with someone, right? Because you do that cultivate thing, right? Now, some donors are like, I don't have time for this, just what do you need? I mean, there are those donors that are out there, but more often, you do this building relationships, and you have a passion, you have a mission, you love the same thing, so you do want this relationship long-term. So, awesome, wonderful. Who else wants to share? We got time for one more, and then the rest of you are off the hook. Yes?
I was the new neighbor. I moved into the neighborhood, so it was an introduction that way. We didn't know each other.
Perfect.
Talked about why I was there, that I, you know, basically was the executive director of a new food bank, and there was need in our community. And the connection was always, there's need right here, and with people that live close to us.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of got around to asking, you know, kind of talking that, you know, in order to address the need here where we live, it was going to cost $20,000 to start up an area just for this area. And she was so nice that she's like, well, you know, we've been pretty profitable, things have been really good, but I can only do a certain amount. And, you know, I think the first thing is, well, you know, I need $20,000, but if you're gonna give me half, or even anything at this point, just from talking about this simple, it was thank right off the bat.
Yeah, of course.
And then it was also, well, but I can do more. I would like to volunteer. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
now you're just going above and beyond. And
Right.
so it's like, okay, you know, really kind of pulling them into the connection part, because they were already in the community. She was already in the community. She probably already knew the need. And so I was pretty much the instrument of saying, okay, this is where, you know, this is where you can help if you need the help.
Yes, wonderful. And fundraisers are like, we're like the middle part of the hourglass, right? You have people that care, you have people that need a hand, and we're just the connectors, right? I love that. Okay, I would love to talk about this a lot more, but I know we're running out of time. So this is what I'd like to challenge you. What will you do this week to help yourself embrace fundraising? So this session was all about overcoming our fear, right? The next 3 sessions we're going to do are a lot more technical, you know, kind of a little more in the weeds of how it works and tools. I'm going to provide you with some tools and things so you won't have to create it from scratch. But today was really about, can we commit to being fundraisers? Can we overcome our anxieties about it? Can we embrace the idea? Why is there giggling? Can we embrace the idea that this is something we might enjoy doing? If it's relationship building, if it will, you know, help our community, empower our organization, it might be something we love. It might be something you love. I never intended to become a fundraiser, and I just found that I loved it so much, right? Because I love people, and I love having an idea and then seeing that idea happen. And like fundraising is what helps make that happen. So I would just challenge you this week to think about where your fears come from and what you can do to overcome those fears. I would love to see you all at the next 3 sessions. You do have to register for each one, so if you want to come, you know, please register. Please don't forget the evaluation in the box at the back. And I love that you all came, and thank you so much for spending time. Yes, Joe?
I think you mentioned that this slideshow will be available somewhere.